choyo sampo pa gyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarmoda pelge drolor zampe zeparche pande lame shabla solvade Omo a Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timonisha Sane Karm Utta Varda Nishri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om a Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timonisha Sane Karm Utta Varda Nishri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timonisha Sane Kar Utta Varda Nishri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timonisha Sane Kar Utta Varda Nishri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timonisha San Utta Varda Nishri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke kudan dagi alu pakyuke sundan dagi nga pakyuke tudan dagi yi tenyerme chiktu jingi alu makyuke kudan dagi alu Makyuke sundan dagi nga Makyuke tukdan dagi Tenyerme chiktu chingelo Om Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Sashipeki Shoshiameto Tramare Rabalingashin Nidegempadi Sange Shinto Mi Tam Niryatayami Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drubra Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupara Sho Sangye Chodan Tsogi Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupara Sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge unto enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Laye ke da ludan ne chin ke drubundan da mi ke namdan druba kuin ge dhanama che tsampa tamche ke tu da ge che ten to. Okay.
One of the great difficulties with communication is that what is said is not necessarily what one hears. And a fundamental point is that we communicate through concepts, sounds that represent concepts. But often, very often, we use the same sounds for concepts that are similar but that are different. In Tibetan, we say "dranang mowan." It's what is similar is by definition different. In the previous verse, where we said, may I accept the loss upon myself and offer the victory to others. What does victory mean? What is victory? What's the victory here? Because this is a verse that when we read it, hurts a little bit, almost, depending on the way you read it. There's a kind of refusal, like how? I mean, when I'm right, I need to say that the other one is right. Let's try to see, first of all, what we mean by victory. And what do we mean by loss? Normally, victory makes reference to obtaining what one wants. There's a process, a path, or there's some kind of conflict, something where, and then one has a result that manifests in some way. If that matches what I wanted, then I've won. I have the victory. I'm victorious. when am I victorious? When I'm able to make things go the way I want them to. But if I'm arguing with you, and I have a point of view, you have your point of view, and at a certain point we have different ways of seeing things. There's a kind of a conflict that arises, for whatever reason. But once your happiness is as important to me as my own, and your suffering is as important to me as my own, where's the victory? What is the victory? Is it in being right, or is it the common well-being, the common good? Because if I love you, the victory is what will be beneficial to you. It's not about being right. So there are two meanings in this verse, according to my reading. One related to our selfishness. I just let go. I stop putting myself in the position where I and the other, where I need to be right or be in the position of grasping at this conflict, to not be attached to the Victoria or to winning over someone else. Instead, recognizing that the victory is what is of most benefit, regardless of how things go, regardless of whether they go the way I want them to or not. Because giving the victory to someone else is doing what's beneficial to others, and taking the loss upon oneself doesn't mean doing what hurts oneself. It means giving the loss to selfishness, not letting selfishness win. So you give the loss to selfishness, and you give the victory to altruism. What does this mean? That if the other person has an attitude that I personally don't agree with for whatever reason, because I'm convinced that way of acting or doing is harmful to himself, harmful to others, I can also try to keep my position, etc. Because letting that person hurt himself or others sometimes sometimes it's not possible to intervene. But sometimes my intervention can actually be helpful. If I see that a person is running towards, is running towards to some kind of like abyss, and I say no, don't. I try to stop that person. The person says, no, I want to go. That's what I want. No, don't do it. And okay, so I wouldn't give the victory to others or say, okay, yeah, just jump. No. That's not exactly how it is. In this case, I'm thinking about the best for that person. And so jumping would not be at all good for you. So I do what I can so that you don't hurt yourself or others. But not in the position of winning and losing and being, but instead putting myself at the service of others. Where I say, what can I do that's the best for you? And doing what's best for you doesn't necessarily mean doing what you want. Is that clear? So when we talk about victory, the victory doesn't necessarily mean to give victory to others. It doesn't necessarily mean what the other one wants, but giving the victory to others means giving importance to the happiness of others, doing what we think is the best for the others, and the loss is not upon us, but it's selfishness that takes the loss. We need to get past this the dynamic of winning and losing. I mean, if you're victorious, I'm victorious too, because your happiness is what's important to me as well. Let me try to be even clearer. When normally we enter into some kind of argument, or there's any kind of conflict, our tendency is to create a division, me and the other. There's some kind of antagonism, or we try to reach our objectives, what I want, how I want it. If at a certain point I give importance to the happiness of the other and the needs of the other as much as my own, I take away this kind of antagonism, and we create a common objective. Your happiness is as important to me as my own, but given that we start from a selfish point of view, we need to almost give more importance to the other. Otherwise, we hide behind this idea of saying that we're the same, and so let's do what I want. But if your happiness is really is important to me, I'll do what's best for you, and by doing that, I'm doing what's best for me too. So in this way, we get out of this attitude of opposition and antagonism. In reality, I give the victory because your victory is also my own victory, because I love you. So your happiness, your well-being is also my own. It's obvious that we are taken by our own ignorance, we're taken by our own inability to have discernment that is always consistent, and so we don't really know what is good for the other. Maybe sometimes we think it's one thing when instead it's another. This happens too, but we're talking about an inner attitude towards the other. So every time there's an attitude of antagonism where one acts with aggression towards us, verbally or even physically, our position is we go against that person and antagonism, and if we try also to see the needs of the other and our ours, not sacrificing ourselves, but trying to find something that is of the common good. Is that clear? So at this point, I think we can go on to the next verse.
강라 다기 펜탁밤 레와체와 강시키 신두 미릭 뇌체낭 신인 담발 따워쇼 강라 다기 펜탁밤 레와체와 강시키 신두 미릭 뇌체낭 신인 담발 따워쇼. Questo verso è la
This verse is the continuation of the two previous verses. Actually, 4 and 5 and 6 are very linked. It says, even if someone whom I have helped and from whom I harbor great expectations were to harm me completely unfairly, may I view him or her as a hallowed teacher. Let's go back to the verse a little bit. Kang la dagi pentampa rewachiwar gangshiki. If someone that I gave, that I benefited a lot, someone that I benefited, someone I helped, more than helped, it's benefited or helped. And at the same time, it's someone I believed in, I gave my trust to. It's not someone it's not someone for whom I have expectations, but someone I gave, someone I trusted. And then it's that person, if they act towards me strongly, Shingtu mirik. Shingtu means extremely. Mirik means incorrectly. Ne means some kind of damage, and je is to do. If someone harms me strongly in a wrong way, or does damage to me in a strong way, so if someone that I benefited, someone I trusted, I believed in you, and at the same, after all of that, towards me, I had opened my heart, I gave you my trust. It's not just that I trusted you, it goes beyond that. I gave you so much, I opened myself up, and what you do to me, you harm me in such a wrong way, so strongly, in such a wrong way. What do? I see you as a great master, as a great teacher. It's difficult. These are not, let's say, light things. I mean, where, as I said, the first level is verse 4. It says, verse 4, and the training in verse 4 is when I meet or see beings who are strongly taken by their mental defilements, and they act and they live in this strong state of negative actions and suffering. May I cherish them, may I see them as a rare and precious treasure of gems. And here we started this attitude of seeing that it's possible to love even when someone acts in a way that we don't agree with. Then we went to a level that's a little harder, which is what would happen if that attitude that we saw it a distance from us, now that attitude is towards us. So maybe we have different points of view, or maybe because of envy, or for some reason you go against me, and then some kind of conflict is created. And in this conflict, we need to go beyond our selfishness and see the needs of the other, and see that the well-being of the other person is also our own. In verse 6, it's even deeper. It says, okay, there's no conflict here. It's a situation where someone actually I helped, I sustained materially, emotionally, physically. I did so much. At a certain point, he goes against me, doesn't just do something like this, no, in a strong way, an extremely incorrect way. He harms me materially, for my image, verbally. In this case, it's not even verbally, just verbally. It's actually real damage. Emotionally makes me suffer. Materially, one is strongly physically hurt. I mean, it becomes more difficult, doesn't it? To open one's heart in this case. It's more difficult to keep our bodhicitta. Why? Because through, quote unquote, it's easy to be a bodhisattva when everything's fine. Here I am. It warm. There's a Tibetan saying that says,
Imetrena chöpesuk dunga toktubana tamalpa.
this Tibetan saying says, when you're in the sun with your belly full, when you're fine, when you're comfortable, when you're taking in the sun and everyone says that you're wonderful and all, when everything's going well, chupesuk. Chupesuk means suk means like is form, and chupe is the Dharma practitioner. So when you're comfortable, you manifest as the great Dharma practitioner. Instead, when suffering comes down to your head, you're an ordinary being like everyone else.
Quindi quando sei con la pancia piena sotto il sole, quindi che va tutto bene, sei il grande praticante perché di qua, di là, eccetera, ti manifesti come una persona equilibrata e tutto il resto. Invece quando ti cade la sofferenza sulla tua testa, che ci sono le difficoltà, i problemi, ti manifesti come in un modo ordinario, normale, reagendo con la rabbia, la gelosia, piuttosto che di qua o di là, no? Quindi quello che accade è, tra virgolette, è facile manifestare che sono una persona amorevole, equilibrata, soddisfatta, eccetera, quando va tutto bene. No? Tutti mi trattano bene, sono tutti carini con me, non ho problemi particolari, non mi manca mai assolutamente nulla, eccetera, eccetera. E vado lì e mantengo il mio equilibrio, guarda, sorrido sempre a tutti, sono bene, sono gentile, eccetera, eccetera. Perché? Sono in un contesto, diciamo così, finché sono in un contesto dove il mio mio egoismo in qualche modo viene sostenuto, no? Riceve il suo massaggino tutti i giorni. In qualche modo va tutto bene e in quel contesto lì è più facile fare il pseudo bodhisattva, per dire, fare quello che è bravo, gentile, eccetera. Dov'è che uno deve veramente mettere lo sforzo per la pratica in questo senso? Quando si trova in una situazione di difficoltà.
When one is in a situation of when someone actually becomes aggressive, when we don't have the resources, that's where we really need to see where we are. So we can be a pseudo bodhisattva when everything is fine. You really see a person when that person you see someone's qualities when they are in a difficult situation, a moment of conflict. That's when the more qualities can actually come out. That expression was, it's easy to be the good practitioner when you're under the sun and your belly's full. But when there's suffering, when suffering comes down, come down like rain, then you're an ordinary person like everyone else. So, for example, when you're in a couple and you're on vacation, there are no problems. I mean, it's easy to get along and be happy together. But if someone is, just full of sensory pleasures without any problems, on vacation in a lovely place, it's not so hard to be together. It's the beauty. The beautiful thing is being close to someone during moments of difficulty. We need to, if we get close to someone, it's really important to have difficult times together. Those are it's in the difficult times that we know each other better. We should know all aspects. I've known people. I have known people that in difficult moments they were marvelous, and when everything was fine, it was a tragedy. I mean, that happens too. That those who have trouble enjoying good times, and when there's a difficult moment, they're able to manage everything, give the best of themselves. Instead, there are those who, when everything's going well, they're absolutely fine, everything's comfortable, and then as soon as there's a problem, they run away, or you can't not be found. That happens too. But towards us, where is it that when can we really see how much patience we have, how much we love others, how well we're following our path when we find ourselves in difficult moments? When we're in easy moments, when the times are going well, we should enjoy. We shouldn't be looking for difficult times. I mean, they'll come anyway. But we shouldn't be afraid of difficult moments. When difficult things happen, we shouldn't have aversion towards the people, etc., who put us in a position of difficulty, because our suffering in front of these situations is not caused by the person who's acting in a certain way, but our own inability to live that situation differently. And in the path of the Bodhisattva, the attitude is, may all beings have the happiness and its causes, and within, included in all the beings are those who also hurt us, or do we exclude them? May all beings, may all beings have happiness may all beings have happiness in its causes, or is it written with a little asterisk, excluded those who harm me, excluding those who cheated on me, or talk badly of me, or the ones who wear red, yellow, or blue, or have the face like this or that, and we go on with a long list of those to exclude. I mean, that would also be an interesting exercise in the sadhana. We could put in the sadhana, may all beings where we say, may all beings have happiness as its causes, and then put a little asterisk and say, we put excluding, and then each person can write who they would actually exclude, just to see how sincere you are with yourself. So if we say, may all beings have happiness in its causes, okay, but who are we excluding? And okay, for example, in the way we are now, do we exclude those to whom we benefit, and those who harm us? I mean, do we want them to be happy, or is that hard for us? Okay, so they're excluded. How about those that we just don't like? Half excluded. And if they're half excluded, it means that we're excluding them. How about those who have a different point of view? Those who our friends don't like. Okay, if we did this exercise, I said it originally as a joke, but if we really did it sincerely, it would show us really where we need to work. Here, Geshe Chekawa already shows us, but we need to be careful to not fall in the trap of saying, thinking that, oh, I love everyone. I'm attached to this idealized idea and feeling of love towards everyone. But then when I find myself in a situation like this, I feel differently. So what's my objective? To be he who loves everyone, or open up my heart in an unconditional way? We need to understand this. So I say this again and again because it can happen often that one gets close to Buddhism or religion and has an image of the bodhisattva or the path of the bodhisattva. It's important to love all beings, and we repeat this again and again, and that somehow one develops this idea that, oh, I need to love everyone, and if not, I mean, it's just bad. If I don't love everyone, I'm not a good Buddhist. And at a certain point, one wants to love everyone to be a good Buddhist. If I don't go to a Pure Land, I won't go to Tushita if I don't love everyone. One can fall into this kind of trap. Our objective is not to become he who loves everyone. Our objective is to crush our own selfishness, the cause of our suffering, and to develop an unconditional love towards everyone. And by doing that, we want to develop all our qualities to help other people do the same. And along this process, which is not easy, it's not easy. We need to be really careful about not falling into this trap. So when we find ourselves in front of someone who is someone that we have helped, someone we've given a lot to. I don't know if it's ever happened to you to help someone. Maybe you've helped someone and that person doesn't even thank you. Or maybe at a certain point does as if he's never has never received anything from you, or he acts even indifferently. You get upset. I've told the story a couple of times. Once I was taking the train to come here, and to get on the train I was late. And the train was basically about to leave. They were already closing the doors. I needed to get on the train quickly. There was a lady in front of me, and she had lots of suitcases, and she was having a hard time. Without thinking much about it, I took her suitcases and I put them on the train. Except that she didn't see me come. She just saw someone who was just taking her things and taking it onto the train, and she got scared. As if someone was trying to steal her luggage. And she was really upset. She started yelling at me and she got very upset. In that case, my intention, my idea was, what was it? It was to help. And from my point of view, I helped her. I mean, she was able to get on the train with all of her luggage. It's what she needed. She needed to get her luggage on the train. But she was upset because she got scared. And I could be. My first reaction was, I was upset. I help you, and this is how you treat me. How is that possible? I did my part, and you do. I did my side. I did my part. You did yours. I mean, it just ends there. But we could be upset for something like that. I've seen people who've received a lot, and then they just didn't recognize anymore how they had benefited. But what is it that actually hurts? Is it the behavior of the person that doesn't recognize what we've given and they've received, or the attachment that we have to being recognized, or that our ego be satisfied? I mean, it's this attachment to the self-gratification. Is that what hurts, or the behavior of the other one? Because if I'm not attached to this self-gratification, I did what I did, really thinking about your well-being. And if at some point you don't recognize that you benefited from me, I mean, I'm happy with what I've done, and keep trying to help you in every possible way, and it doesn't matter to me if you spit on me, or you yell at me, or you hit me, because what I want isn't I don't want self gratification. What I want is to act in the most consistent way that brings your well-being. Is that idea clear? If I do something good for you, or I think that I'm doing something good for you, or I've helped you in many ways, and at a certain point you treat me badly, what makes me suffer? What actually is generating my suffering? Normally we would say, that person's behavior, right? Shantideva says, if someone comes to you and they hit you with a stick, who do we give the blame to, for the pain that we feel? Is it the stick? I mean, what actually touched me was the stick. No, it's not the primary cause, so it can't be the guilty one. So is it is the arm to blame? No, who's to blame? If we really look, it's ignorance, it's anger, what generated that force. So that's the one to blame. So if we should get angry with anyone, it should be the selfishness, the ignorance, and the anger of the other. That's the primary cause. When we look at ourselves, our sufferings in a situation like this, the behavior of the person is something that makes our own attachment to self-gratification come out, our own selfishness that comes out, which is actually what makes us suffer. I mean, the reason why we suffer is not someone's behavior. That's just a condition through which our own selfishness comes out. That's what makes us suffer. So to be in situations like this, and I don't wish this upon anyone, but when one is training in the bodhisattva path and has gotten to this point, it's a great opportunity. When, like in this context, you can understand even better when there was this practitioner who was put in prison for many years, etc., was tortured, etc. Or, we're not talking about silly things. Years later, he was asked when he got out of prison. It was a very old monk who lived many years in the prison. He got to India, and when the Tibetans, I don't know today if it's still like this, but the Tibetans who got to India had a brief encounter with the Dalai Lama. And so when the Dalai Lama received this monk, he asked him what was the most difficult thing that happened to you in all these years. What was the worst thing that happened to you? And he answered, the worst thing for me was when I almost lost the compassion for the guard who beat me. It wasn't the pain or the hard work. It was the worst thing was almost losing my compassion. I mean, this is someone who practiced this quite seriously. So when someone finds himself in a situation like this, it's really the moment to practice. When our friend Franca asked the Panchen Lama, how was it for you to be in prison? And the Panchen Lama during the Cultural Revolution, etc., he was many years in prison in very difficult situation. What did you do? The Panchen Lama said, when I found myself in prison, what I did is I had to put into practice what I had read in the books. It was my moment to meditate, to put into practice what I had learned. and he was a marvelous person. The Panchen Lama, he was very, very special. There's the painting of him. If we see these 5 masters here. Inside, we say hi. There's Gonsa Rinpoche, it's from right to left. Demo Gonsa Rinpoche, the 10th Panchen Lama. There's Pabonka Dechen Ningpo. And then there's Panchen Chökyi Gyaltsen and Nagarjuna. So the 10th Panchen Lama would be the second one from right to left. He was the Panchen Lama. He was someone very important. He was one of the previous masters of Lama Ganshin. And in those years when he was in prison, he said it was an important moment for him where he learned a lot, and he had no other choice but to put into practice what he learned. And so when we live difficult situations and we're able to face them and not run away and not be overwhelmed by them, we become stronger people, and we learn things. We really do. I think so. So difficulties are good for us when we face them with a minimum of wisdom. When the difficulties are not faced, but they're something that overwhelm us, and one to which one acts in an unhealthy way, then that's not at all healthy. But otherwise, bring on difficulties. Because if we're really on a path of development of love and generosity, stability, if we really seriously set as a life objective to go against our own selfishness, that there'll be a moment where that selfishness and that grasping at self-gratification is going to hide, and one would seem like a perfect bodhisattva. That's, it's when it's hidden, and then need to see where it comes out so that we can practice. Pabonka Rinpoche in one of the texts said, mental defilements are like poison in the blood, that they're easy to eliminate them when they're manifested, when you can see it. Imagine poison in the blood, and as long as it's just circulated in the blood, it's difficult to take out that poison. But if at a certain point the poison comes out as some kind of wound or some kind of infection, at that point one knows where it is, knows where to apply the medicine, how to cure it, etc., even if it's painful. So instead, if the poison is hidden, it's more difficult. Similarly, as long as our mental defilements are hidden, it's difficult to apply a correct an antidote. It's only when they're manifest that we can do something, and sometimes it can happen along our path that we put in, a great amount of effort into seeing the other, opening up our heart, being generous and patient, and not acting with anger, seeing other people's needs, and we do all this, and it's wonderful. But there's a point where a part of our selfishness hides. Often, sometimes our selfishness actually hides behind altruism itself. It hides in the sense that it masks behind this sense of altruism. You see how there's a situation. You see how good I am, and I hug my enemy. I try to help him. I show love. Show love to the rapist, and somehow some part of me is saying, oh, look how good I am. Oh, I'm along the path of the bodhisattva, look how good I am, until then, and then someone hits me in a weaker point, someone I helped, someone I trusted. At some point, he really strikes me in a wrong, very incorrect way, and at that point, the selfishness really comes out, and it's a little bit like it's said, there's a story that there was this practitioner in Tibet who was doing a retreat, and a master went to find him and said, oh, okay, what retreat are you doing and what practices are you doing? He said, I'm practicing patience. I'm doing a retreat on patience. And he said, oh, wonderful, good. And then he spits on him and he strikes him, and then actually it had to take a step backwards, because this monkey got so angry. And this master said, remember that without an object of anger, you can't practice patience. It's almost like saying, if at a certain point, if we were to find ourselves in a state where our selfishness dresses up as altruism, and so we see ourselves as being generous and kind, but really we don't care much about the other person. Instead, we want to be the one who is helping the others. It's very delicate, this passage. If at a certain point someone came to me, someone hurt me, someone was really touched this weak point of mine in a very wrong way, and if my selfishness were able to come out at that point, and I could see it, the one who hurt me could even be an emanation of a Buddha, because they can say, okay, now I see you, selfishness, and I have only to thank someone if they're able to show me where my selfishness lies. I don't know if this is clear. For this, when someone hurts us, to practice, I mean, here we already need to be at a certain level of practice, because for many people, when you find them in a situation, for many people, when someone hurts them, they need to take distance and be protected. Okay, it's okay. So yeah, I know that one treats you badly and treats you with verbal and physical abuse. He's raped you. I mean, he's your master. No, if someone who is being abused, they should be protected. I mean, without thinking about it twice, this is sure. But for he who is along the path and is following this training to open up his heart and develop an altruistic heart, to overcome this grasping at self-gratification, and one thinks of, if one seriously wants may all beings have happiness and its causes, and recognizes that the happiness of others is important as our own. If someone were to meet someone who hurts you, but you should also protect ourselves, but see at the same time, see where my selfishness is hiding, and at that point that person becomes a great master, is showing me something that is very important to me, and it's helping me to overcome it. I know it's a little hardcore. We're talking about something that's at a really expert level, we're not talking about something that's just so light for everyone. But can you at least see how this can be a practice? Maybe we're not ready yet, we're not there yet, but do we see how it's possible and see how it can be practiced at our level? Because I don't know how often we find ourselves in situations like this. But the one who helps us see our own shadows is really helping us. Let's remember that you cannot if I can have a lot of light, for example, but if I don't shine the light where the darkness is, or the same way I can buy all the medicine in a pharmacy, but if I don't have the right diagnosis, I don't have the right prescription. I mean, many medicines, taken in the wrong way become poison. I can have a bow and arrow, but if I don't know where my target is, I mean, a substance becomes medicine when it's in contact with the sickness that it can cure. Otherwise, it's just a substance. In Tibetan medicine, all substances are potential medicine. Any plant, any mineral, any substance is a potential medicine. It's potentially a medicine. It depends on the dosage and in the right quantities and mix. So to be able to face our own shadows, we need to be able to see them. There's a moment in the practice where there's a part of our own obsession of self-gratification that hides, that becomes difficult to see. And in these more extreme, difficult situations, help them come out so that we can catch them. We shouldn't stay in this difficult situation, because once it's come out, we see where it is, and then we can more easily face it. But let's remember that when someone acts in this way towards us, I repeat what we said before, what generates my own suffering is not the behavior of the other, it's the attachment at my own self-gratification. And so what can I do to act for the common good? Because if your happiness is as important to me as my own, then at that point I don't suffer so much. I do something that protects me, I do something that protects you too, instead of simply victimizing myself or playing defense or offense and counterattacking. One of the great difficulties that exist in general with Buddhist teachings, and in particular with these Lojong teachings, is that they are tools, they're practices, lifestyles that are quite advanced, that require a starting point of certain emotional stability, which often are lacking. So we shouldn't have this feeling of feeling this sense of guilt, like, oh, I should be like this, but I'm not. We need to respect respect where we are in our position, our starting point, and the length of our own legs. We shouldn't burden ourselves thinking I should already be there. If I'm in a position where today I'm not able to face in a healthy way this a situation of conflict, then I take a step backwards and I move away from the conflict, and then it's in the future I'll be able to face it in a better way, because otherwise we'll just hurt ourselves. These are not rules. like you're Buddhist and you need to do this. No, this is a training process, one step after the other. And now we've gotten to point 6 out of 8. This is already an advanced level. But at the same time, as Geshe Chekawa Rinpoche said in a similar context, he said, the first thing that we need to do for something to come about is wanting it. So even if we're not ready to see he who hurts us as our own teacher and use that situation to see our shadows and apply the antidote, at least let's generate the aspiration, may I one day be able to do this. We're not there yet, but this takes us in the direction of where we want to go. I'm not ready yet to see the victory of the other as my own, or to give the victory to other and take the loss upon myself, but I would like to go in that direction. So as we said at the beginning, right, just yesterday or the other day, the day before yesterday, our obsession with self-gratification is something that is strongly rooted inside ourselves. It's not a concept, an idea, a thought. Oh, it's a cultural habit. No, this life after life after life and life and lives and lives and lives that we're like this. And someone might ask me, well, can we change? And someone asked me, but well, you know, how long have I been like this, ignorant and selfish? And this is a very serious problem here. If it's from beginningless time, and we can't highlight a day where I was not selfish, you know, or without ignorance. At that point, is it possible to change? If there was a day that I wasn't selfish, and if there actually was a day where I was without ignorance and without selfishness, that's even worse, because then what happened to change it? If I was free of ignorance and selfishness, then what happened? Whose fault is it? Where did I go wrong? Because if I wasn't ignorant, then I wouldn't have been able. If I wasn't ignorant, then I wouldn't have made mistakes to then make myself ignorant. Did my wisdom expire? The answer is that if we look for a moment in our history of existence where the beings in general, and specifically ourselves, if we could go back life after life after life, we've had lives where we were kinder, lives where we were more generous, but won't be able to find a moment where we weren't selfish or without ignorance. And at this point, someone might ask me, well, then let's just give up. What's the point to try to overcome selfishness and get rid of my ignorance with wisdom? Maybe it's not possible. There's one thing that saves us. There's one thing that gives me the faith to say it's possible. Because if we look, the world around us, are most people altruistic or selfish? If I've been selfish since beginningless times, then what can I do? Maybe it's not possible to be different. No, but the only thing that to me gives me faith, gives me certainty that it is possible, and it gives meaning to all of this, is the fact that our mind, our being, is malleable, is interdependent. Is that if I think in a certain way and I familiarize myself, if I familiarize myself in the one way, then that's how I shape myself. If I can more and more create a habit, a way of speaking and thinking and being, more and more opening up my heart and eliminating that selfishness, then this altruism is going to grow and grow, and it's without limit. And I know it's possible. I've known people like this. Just that the fact that our mind is impermanent and in constant transformation, and that every small action and experience and choice directs this transformation. This is what gives us hope. Just look in our own history of humanity, what we're able to see. What's the most powerful thing that human beings have had and will have? Imagination. Our ability to imagine, to create, but creating, physically creating comes from imagining. And how being able to imagine ourselves, as Geshe Rinpoche says, with an attitude, with a real attitude of altruism, where we're really cherishing the happiness of others, where we have a level of inner stability that doesn't let external circumstances unbalance us. Actually, they even reinforce our inner stability. So this is wonderful. The more unfavorable external situations are and circumstances are, the stronger my inner stability and conviction becomes. But if we just imagined ourselves, just allowed ourselves to think about it, to imagine it, that's already a lot. Because when I allow myself to imagine myself like this, I'm opening myself up to the possibility to become that. And a fundamental step is allowing ourselves to imagine. I'm not saying that I need to be this, or that I am that, or I will be. No, we allow ourselves to imagine. That's why in Vajrayana Buddhism, when we look at what we call the sadhanas, we bring the result into the path. I see myself as a Buddha. But this practice is not, I see myself as Tara, in the sense that I'm here with all my problems and all my anxiety and my fear, and then I see that I have a turquoise green body, with my with a feminine body, with a seductive allure, and with my almond eyes and my hands in the mudras. No, it's not that I see myself as Tara. I am Tara. I allow myself to be a Buddha, where the external aspect is just a small part of all of it. I am stability, joy, wisdom, harmony, bliss, love, compassion. And I manifest myself according to the needs of other beings. I allow myself to imagine myself like this. When we allow ourselves this, we're opening up, we're opening up a very important door to one day become that, because there are two ways to imagine things. I can imagine something that's disconnected from my own reality, or I imagine myself in that reality. One thing is saying, oh, how beautiful, how wonderful bodhisattvas are. Another thing is allowing myself to say how wonderful it will be when I become a Buddha. And I imagine myself as a bodhisattva. I take that concept and I bring it into my present moment, and I imagine it as if it were so. This is the verse that we're looking at. We shouldn't just, we shouldn't be asking too much to be able to put it into practice right away. But what we can absolutely do is allow ourselves to imagine ourselves realizing this. Just simply imagining myself in a situation of great conflict where someone I helped or benefited and then comes to me and damages me in a terrible way. And in that situation, I'm able instead to maintain the love towards that person, maintain that compassion and my open heart. I don't feel damaged. I don't feel hurt. Instead, I thank the person because that context helped me manifest, helped me see a part of myself. It helped me see a part of myself. And I maintain my stability and my feelings of love. I mean, just allow yourself to think about that. When I studied Buddhist philosophy in a detailed way, I saw that one of the hardest things to do is study, understand, to understand what a Buddha is, how a Buddha is. It's difficult to understand, to imagine how does the mind of a Buddha work. And it's explained in many ways, and one day we can open up the details. Not now, but it's difficult in many aspects. And sometimes it's hard for us to imagine something that goes beyond our own ability, to accept whether it's possible or not. But here, Geshe Chekawa is showing us, this comes from Buddhist teachings, is helping us, first of all, to imagine, and from imagining, then we can say that we want it, and then gradually we bring this imaginary into our lives. Okay, I'm not the person I want to be yet, but I am, little by little, I'm going to make it possible. I'm going to make it happen. But when we talk about bodhisattvas, it's not something unreachable. Unfortunately, I see that in these days when we talk about bodhisattvas, it seems something unreachable, a special being, as if we put Buddha and Jesus and bodhisattvas, and the saints. Buddha is Jesus, and the bodhisattvas are like the saints. Excuse me, forgive me if I make this comparison. But what happens is that most of us, we come from this background, and we try to see it in this way. But in the Buddhist view, the bodhisattvas, if we were talking about saints, they're not something sacred in the sense that they're far away and separate from our reality. They're examples of how we should be and what we should become. So, we even take vows of bodhisattva. The bodhisattva vows, we commit to this path. So we should all become bodhisattvas. We should, in the sense that this path takes us there, but not like, oh, Buddhas, bodhisattvas, please bless me, help me because I'm in such a bad state. No, I'm also the bodhisattva, and I'm getting there. I can do it. I want it. And if I'm not a bodhisattva yet, because I have all my stories, but I want to live like one. That's why there are bodhisattva vows. That's why there's the path of the bodhisattva, because I want to live like a bodhisattva. I want to be a bodhisattva in every aspect, where my life is based on the 6 perfections, and cultivating the generosity and patience and morality, enthusiastic effort, concentration and wisdom based on love. At the base of everything, there's wisdom. There is some love and compassion that we see that come out in the 6 perfections of generosity, morality, patience, etc. At the entrance of the temple, maybe you've seen at the entrance there's a kind of flower, and that, I wanted to do something nice. It's not that I had some great deep intention to tell the truth, but normally at the entrance of temples, historically speaking, they should remind us of our motivation and why we're there, and that's why normally the entrances are white, and to remind us that white is free of dirt, so freed. So one should have a very pure motivation, and ours is not white. I also wanted to respect. I wanted to respect the environment and use a local stone. So we're in this area of stone. So this one meaning that this drawing has, we have the circle that sustains the petals. That's the love and compassion. This is the mind of bodhicitta, and each petal is one of the 6 perfections. Is the way this love manifests itself in our lives, and we're here for that. But obviously, we can't expect to have already realized the 6 perfections and be bodhisattvas, but we can't even just wait to that. We'll think that one day we will become it because something is just going to fall from the sky to make us like that. Bodhisattvas are here, and also in represented here within our language, also to show us you can do it too. We're here to become bodhisattvas. And the first step, at least, what we can do is allow ourselves to imagine ourselves as bodhisattvas in our daily life, in the life that we live now, with the job that we have, with our familial context. Okay, how would all of this be if I were a bodhisattva? This reminds me. Our friend, Mr. Yan, he made a T-shirt. He probably still has it, I imagine. And it said, today is my bodhisattva day. His T-shirt said, but he was really serious about it. I imagine he still does it. Today's my bodhisattva day. The T-shirt aside, the fact is, to say, like, if I were a bodhisattva in my life, how would I be? How would I be as a bodhisattva in the life that I live now? In this context in which I am now, if the happiness of the other was as important as mine, as if the priority in my life was generosity and patience and the correct conduct and enthusiastic effort and concentration and wisdom, if I really was able to put clarity into my objective, which is to be free of suffering and help others do the same and abandon that materialistic utopia, if I was able to see every being as being absolutely precious, if I was able to be at the service of everyone I met, and not, instead of trying to see everyone at my service, if I was able to have control and awareness of my thoughts, if I knew how to direct my thoughts and my speech and my actions, if I was able to love unconditionally without saying, I love you if you do this or that, and we were able to love everyone, if we saw that the happiness of each one is as important as our own, if we were able to act in accordance to this, where there are no more conflicts, because the needs of others is also my own objective. So I'm not stuck in a conflict. Maybe someone remains in conflict with me, but I let it go. If I were able to really, if I could really see every situation, even the most difficult, if they could all increase these feelings of gratitude and compassion and love instead of generating aversion, it would really be wonderful, wouldn't it? But let's try at least to imagine this. These 6 verses that we've seen so far, try to see it in our own lives. It's like if one said, oh, how, if I had this house, if my husband was like this, if I had this much money, if I had this, that, or the other. Have you ever daydreamed? I think we all have daydreamed. Oh, it would be so nice if I could go there, if I was like this. Let's daydream. How beautiful would our life be as bodhisattvas? Not as a sacrifice, but just imagine, really. Would be marvelous. And allow ourselves this. Once I'm able to imagine myself as a bodhisattva, at that point, I say, okay, I'm not there yet, but I want to start acting as if. I want to take this path seriously, which is the most important thing that there is. It's what gives meaning to life. In other words, it's what sincerely gives meaning to life, is being a positive interference to the union of this reality, each one in his own way. Each person has his own opportunities and conditions. I mean, we're not all here to do the same thing in the same way. For various reasons, I don't know what they are, I find myself in this position, but this doesn't mean that my life is more meaningful than someone else who could maybe be a factory worker. Often it's how someone lives, how one can become a positive interdependence in the whole workings of everything. In this, being a positive interdependence gives meaning to the life. What makes life burdensome is when you're a negative interdependence, where our interactions increase, they become conditions for suffering for others. We can never be the cause of someone else's suffering, but we can be a negative condition for others' sufferings. Instead, let's be favorable conditions for others' happiness. I'll just repeat one more time. Let's allow ourselves to dream. This is very, very important. Because without the dream, with that reality will have a hard time becoming. An artist. The beauty of an artist is looking at a piece of stone and seeing the sculpture. One starts here, there. I've seen now less because I'm doing other things, but there were times when I was always at the computer and doing lots of projects, working with images, audio, video, and there was a long period where the computers weren't as stable as they are now, and sometimes I would spend hours and hours doing something, and at a certain point the computer would just crash. There was a time also, I remember when I was in Milan, and there was a room that was set up for the publications. It was at the beginning of the computers. It was like 1996, 1997, and there were the various computers, and there were a couple people that we knew that when they would come into the office, everyone would quickly save all of their files, because certain people somehow, some people that would just make the computers block. They're these kind of like bugs. They were bugs because they really were in these big armoires. But sometimes I'd spend hours and hours and I'd forget to save, and then the computer would block, it would crash, and what would happen? You'd have to start again, start from the beginning. And when you have to start from the beginning, normally, do you need the same amount of time, or is it faster? It's much faster because you already have the idea. Because you've already been able to imagine it. You just need to follow the steps, and you don't just have the idea, but you also have the whole path set out. And often when that would happen, when you had to redo it, it was even better than before. But imagining is incredibly important. Let's remember also that, and tomorrow we'll talk, tomorrow or maybe the day after tomorrow, that nothing exists independently from the value that we give it to it. This object, like we said yesterday, is a concept. This is book that is a concept attributed to a concept that it could be sustained by its parts and its characteristics and function. I mean, we too. We're an identity, we're an identity, and we have an idealized image of ourselves, what we try to become. We need to use this to our favor and have an image of who we want to be, how we want to be, and identify us more and more with this image of bodhisattva. There's a text, maybe I'll pull it out, maybe the first part of the text we can read tomorrow. It's called Lojong Sunjo Korro. This is the mind. It's mind training of the wheel of sharp weapons. Once I explained the whole thing, it's really quite strong. And I remember I liked the translation. It's the wheel of sharp weapons. This is making reference to karma. This is the wheel of sharp weapons that after a full turn comes back to me. And this was the concept. But the first part of this text talks about the bodhisattva, making reference, saying that bodhisattva is like a peacock. and talks about two aspects. It's said in the text, I don't know if it's true, that peacocks likes the sound of thunder, and then when there are storms, the peacock is really happy. They really like the sound of storms. And the second thing is that peacocks eat poisonous snakes, and the more poison they eat, the more beautiful the feathers become. So the peacock, it's said that peacock eats poisonous plants too. So the more poison the peacock eats, the more beautiful he becomes. And so the bodhisattva is like a peacock. Is not afraid of poison, not afraid of thunders. And the more that all the difficulties are transformed into beauty. And so the peacock or the bodhisattva, they're not afraid of being in difficult situations, because the more difficult the situation is, the more that will reinforce his bodhichitta, his love, his compassion, his generosity. And so there's no fear of being in a difficult situation or being uncomfortable in any way, because when the situation is pleasurable, he follows the virtuous conditionings that he already has, and when the situations are difficult, those situations reinforce the qualities, not the opposite. And this is part of the Bodhisattva way. Here in Geshe Rinpoche tells us in the 8 verses, he gives us the secret, he gives us the key on how we can transform this difficult situation that can increase our qualities. And when we start at the beginning, or we identify our objective is to be at peace with myself. I recognize that, egotistically speaking, it's better to be altruistic, and the primary cause of my suffering comes from my selfishness, as manifests as attraction, aversion, jealousy, etc. And to eliminate the primary cause of my suffering, my selfishness, I need to generate altruism, love, and compassion. If I find myself in a difficult situation and I'm able to love, I am elevating my love to a very high level, and I'm able to really put down my selfishness. So these difficult situations become a pulley for our path. When one practices Lojong seriously, adverse situations are things that help rise us up. They raise us up. This is something marvelous. It's not for nothing that at the beginning of mind training, the 7-point mind training, it says that this method, these tools of mind training have a characteristic where with the more difficult the situations are, the more powerful these tools become. And it's said that this mind training can actually transform these times of degeneration, because we live in times of degenerations of body and time and beings. So they transform these degenerations into the path. It's said here on page 39. It says, knowing that in difficult moments, these difficult moments can increase our love, because the quality of love I feel towards someone in the moment that someone is hurting me is much greater than the love I would feel when things are going well. So this much stronger. But we need to practice in a gradual way, respecting ourselves and where we are. But I want you to understand what it means to increase your bodhichitta through adverse conditions. I don't know if this point was clear. So at least we try to imagine this state. Try to think of ourselves as bodhisattvas. Lama Michel Rinpoche, he cared so much about the painting of the 84 Mahasiddhas that you can see between these two windows. There's a smaller one and a bigger one on each side. They're symmetric. Between the big and the small one there are two, and here there are also two. You can see that a similar composition. There's a main figure and many smaller around. These four paintings together are the 84 Mahasiddhas. So in the center is the one who is. Here we have Nagarjuna. To my left, Darinkapa was the previous life of Lama Ganchen. Here on my right, there's Lama Tsongkhapa in his Mahasiddha aspect on top of the tiger, and then Atisha. So the larger figures are ones who are given more emphasis. But if you look carefully, all the ones around, they're not representations of people who are, how can I say, not very conventional, let's say. There's everything there. There's he who, here I can see near Nagarjuna, there's one who's this one who is weaving. There was the textile maker, and this man, he continued to do that, but he incorporated his spiritual path into this job of being a weaver. He didn't go into a monastery or into a cave. So Lama Ganchen, he really cared about these images, these representations, saying, this shows you that you should follow the bodhisattva way according to where you are. You don't need to go who knows where. You need to transform your own conditions in the path that increases your love and your wisdom, and without needing to go who knows where. You need to adapt your own reality, so you increase increase the two bodhicittas. I can do it. With all sincerity, I say the reason why I choose these Lojong teachings and the reason why we're seeing them together, aside from the fact that I like them, they have been and they still are very important to me, but I really believe that you can benefit from them and you can put them into practice according to your own level, where you are. I don't have any expectation that when we leave here that you're all practicing, perfectly up to verse 6. Not even in my dreams do I have this expectation. I do expect this. I have the wish, the request, is that each one does his best to put into practice, according to one's own capacity. If one tries to imagine, desire, and develop this aspiration to become a bodhisattva, there's an error that sometimes that comes out, and I just take advantage to highlight it. Sometimes I hear comments almost like jokes, but sometimes the jokes, really tell the truth of what one thinks, and it's as if the bodhisattva's life was a life of sacrifice. I hear the joke like, it's not like I'm a bodhisattva, as if a bodhisattva was a kind of a silly one that just lets anything happen to him. No, a bodhisattva is courageous, is fearless. He knows how to transform every situation into the path. He knows how to use every context that will increase his love and wisdom. At the same time, a bodhisattva is at the service of others, maintaining his own path, his own dignity in that moment is something marvelous. Bodhisattva has the ability to accumulate virtuous energy, so-called merits, in an incredible way, much more than all put together, those who are not bodhisattvas. When there's this deep altruistic love, the positive energy that is generated is very, very strong. So somehow the bodhisattva is like a role model, an idol, the example of who we want to be. I want to be a bodhisattva in my life. What do you want in your life? What do you want to do in life? I want to become a bodhisattva. So I try to live it in the most consistent way possible. But when I say I want to be a bodhisattva, I don't say it like in a kind of nostalgic way. Oh, it would be so wonderful if, as if it weren't possible. No, I want to be a bodhisattva, and I'm going to make it. I can do it. It's possible. When is it that one becomes a bodhisattva? When the main goal in one's life of that being is the common good of each one, and based on that, one believes in one's potential and really tries to develop spiritually and perfect his qualities to help each and every one overcome his suffering. And then Bodhisattva has his own path, a graduated path, one thing after the other. But how can I say? Let's allow ourselves to dream, to say, I want one day to become a bodhisattva, and I'll make it, without anyone listening to anyone say, oh, the bodhisattva here and there. No, we don't need here. Here, maybe it's not the best comparison, but once I read a book on mathematics that talked about primary numbers. It was very beautiful. I remember I really liked this book, and explained primary numbers, telling the life of mathematicians who made certain discoveries regarding primary numbers. And there was something really interesting. This is one who showed us how, in this book, he showed that for many mathematicians wasn't to resolve. It wasn't the problem of resolving the problem of prime numbers, but they wanted to have a theorem in their name, like Pythagoras. Oh, just imagine, the theories, a theorem of Lama Michel. I'll stay in the books forever. But what do I care? What do I care? What I want is to do something that's helpful for others. It's not that I don't want to become a bodhisattva. I don't want to be a bodhisattva so that I can have an image of myself here, or maybe they make a tanka of myself. I want to be, my image together there with the 84 Mahasiddhas. No, it's not that. They're there because it's like saying someone came before me and found the solution. They found the solutions. I can do it too. Pythagoras did it. I can do it too. I mean, how many mathematicians were able to resolve problems, to then be the basis and help for those who came after. So when we see those who've come before us and were able to do it, they should be an example to us, an example to tell us that we're able, to remind us that we can do it. So all of our masters that are represented here in the various stories, when we look at the various Mahasiddhas, etc., they're here to remind us of that. And we can do it. But I'm just going to repeat one more time that I please allow yourself to dream. When we allow ourselves to dream, when we desire, when we dream, we open the doors to start realizing and becoming. Okay, now I read in the news, every once in a while I look at the news on the BBC, and there was some news about, in these days, they're preparing, they're going to send a new telescope to space. It's going to be very powerful, but beside this, there's a lady who's one of the main astrophysicists who's taking care of all this. And in this interview, they showed her as a child. She was born in the middle of Kansas where there was nothing, and she was fascinated by the sky, and she had this dream as a child to understand better. What brought her to become an important astrophysicist was this childhood dream. Allowing to dream of course, there's a whole path to get there, but that dream is fundamental. It's what allowed her to start. Sometimes I have this feeling that in today's world, that we just don't let ourselves dream anymore, as if, okay, better find a comfortable balance of where I am instead of trying to dream of something. Instead, it's really important to dream. It's important for us, and it's important for society, the society that we're a part of. The Bodhisattva way is a real path. It's possible, but each one of us, we need to allow ourselves to imagine ourselves as bodhisattvas. And it's not something external, it's how we face life inside, internally. Time for our dedications for today.
Sashi peke chukshi meto chan rirab lingshi nide gembadi sangye shinto mikte ulwargi drokun namda shingla che par shoya jetsu lame kutse raptenchi namkar tinle chokchur gepadang losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsela takto ne gyurchi yedam guru ratna mandrala kam niryata yami Kyewa kuntu yanda lama dang, drame cheke pela longche ching, sadan lamge yente rabzo ne, dorje change kopa nyurtobe sho, chanchubo semcho rinpoche, ma ke panam ke gyurchi, ke pa nyampara me Kongne konto pelwar sho Nimo dele tsendele Nime kuyan delek shing Nintsen takto delek pe Koncho sumke chingi lo Koncho sumke ngodrubo tsol Koncho sumke all'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and spring all the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Sim Chu Sudro, Che Lam Tudro, Lam La Parche, Miyong Arshon. Possa la mente diventare il Dharma,